There are 10 things to remember if you want a perfectly frosted cake, and it starts from baking your cake, down to making your ganache or buttercream, and frosting it just by following these steps. Number 1. Grease your pan. It is very important that your cake is perfectly baked, and greasing the pan plays an important role to produce one. There are 3 ways in greasing the pan: by using butter or using oil with flour, and by using a non-stick cooking spray. Using baking sheets or parchment paper also helps. Take note that greasing the pan depends on the recipe. Not all cake recipes need a greased pan. Number 2. Use high-quality ingredients. Using low-quality ingredients will never give you a good baked product, especially on cakes. Always take note of the expiration dates of the ingredients and replace them if needed. For the eggs, milk, and other wet ingredients, make sure that all of these are fresh. Most wet ingredients should be at room temperature, but check the recipe first if it requires a cold one. Number 3. Follow the recipe and the baking time. If you ask me, I would always focus on the technique of how a recipe is being done. Recipes are just the guide on what you need in terms of ingredients, but if you can follow the technique on how to bake or cook the recipe properly, then you will definitely have a good baked product. Another important thing aside from the technique is the baking time. Do not overbake or underbake your product, as this will definitely make a big problem with the cake that you are going to frost. Number 4. Make the perfect ganache or icing. Here's a short clip on how I make my ganache. Start with 300 grams of chocolate, sliced or cut thinly. Place it in a microwavable container. Add 100 grams of all-purpose cream or heavy cream. Microwave the mixed ingredients for 30 seconds by doing it in 2 15-second intervals. If the mixture still needs some more melting, add another 15 seconds and mix thoroughly. You should get a peanut butter consistency, and this is the perfect ganache that you can use for frosting your cake. If you want to produce a good ganache or buttercream, just click the link in the description below and follow my recipe. Again, focus on the technique. Number 5. Cut and level the cake. Once the cake is done, let it cool for a couple of hours. A freshly baked cake should be turned upside down when cooling. This process will make your cake cool faster, as it releases the heat from the core through its base. It is also important to note that you cannot cut a cake that is still hot or warm, as it will produce crumbs when sliced. The best way to cool your cake is to let it rest on the table for an hour and transfer it to a chiller and let cool for another or so. This will make your cake firm, and as you slice it, it will be smooth and easier to apply with buttercream or ganache. If you are making a 2-tier cake or higher, always use a dowel as support. Take note, if your cake is more than 12 inches in height, be it a 2-tier cake, 3-tier, or more, you have to use dowels to make it stable. Here's a sample diagram of how to place the dowels in your cake. Number 6. Use the correct spatula. There are only 2 spatulas that you can use in spreading the ganache or icing: the straight spatula and the angled spatula. You can also use a scraper when you are already finishing your frost on the cake. This will make your smoothing faster than using the straight or angled spatula. There are other types of scraper, and it comes in different styles and sizes, depending on the cake design that you need. Most of the time, it is only used on the icing, not on the ganache. But honestly, the more you practice using the spatula, you will learn how to smoothen your frost just by using it, and you don't need a scraper at all. As they always say, practice makes perfect. Either of these two will smoothen the icing or ganache on your cake. Make sure that your cake is sliced perfectly and leveled. Otherwise, you will have a hard time straightening the icing or ganache that you are applying to the cake. Here are some additional tips that will help you frost your cake with ease. First, make sure that you are using a flat cake board or acrylic cake board just to make sure that your cake is placed on it as flat as it should be. And also, your cake turntable is steady, not wobbly, just the same as your table. These three will help a lot in frosting your cake perfectly. When frosting the sides of the cake using the spatula, make sure that it is vertically straight as you spread the icing back and forth. Do not put too much icing or ganache, as it will give you an uneven thickness all throughout the cake. The thicker the icing or ganache, the more likely that you will have an uneven coating on the cake. If you are using the scraper, make sure that the base part of it touches the cake board and that the edge is standing 90 degrees. You only use the icing scraper after the icing or ganache has been spread on the cake. The scraper acts as a smoother while the spatula is used to put the icing or ganache. Angle the scraper towards you while turning the cake turntable. Do not scrape the icing, but use a gentle scrape to smoothen it. If you are smoothing the top of the cake, either by using the spatula or scraper, make sure that you stroke from the outside edge of the cake going to the center. This will give you a flat and smooth surface on your cake. Remember, scrape the sides and the top of the cake gently. Scraping it hard will take the icing or ganache out of the cake, plus, it will also tilt your cake. Number 7. Crumb coating. The very first coating that you apply on the cake is called crumb coating. Always spread a thin layer of the ganache or the icing. This process is to seal all the sides and top of the cake and not to have crumbs on the second or final coating, as this will affect the cake's appearance. Number 8. Let it cool. Once the crumb coating is done, it is important to let the cake rest inside the chiller. This will help the second coating and the final coating to be smooth, both on the sides and on top of the cake. Number 9. Second coating. The second coating is applied to smoothen the cake. Some bakers apply a second coating, and sometimes it is also the final coating. But if you are still not happy with the second coating, the third one is still okay until you get the best result. Again, placing your cake inside the chiller every after the coating is important for you to have a smoother coating. Number 10. Design your cake. And once you are done frosting your cake, it's time to design your cake. Sky's the limit. It's up to you how you want your cake to look, but as much as possible, do not exaggerate your design. Remember, simplicity is beauty. Well, unless your client wants something extravagant, then do as they say. Frosting your cake is not that easy, but if you will follow all these tips, I am definite that you will make the perfect cake. Remember, if your client is happy with the cake you made, you will always be happier and feel great as a baker. Keep this in mind. The art of baking is a balancing act between ingredients, time, temperature, and technique. More tips coming up, so stay tuned.